That nigga. Nah, that kid tried to steal their gun. So I say fuck him.
Did the kid try getting you?
I didn't know we did it. I didn't know the answer.
Oh, they cooking bro shit. That's basically it. A shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. What I said was all the praises, honor, and glory belongs to Yahweh, who is the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly calls God, in the name of his Son, Yahweh Shai, who is the Messiah, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which in Hebrew is Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. All right, and this lesson, okay, is going into basically, you know, this video you've seen here. This is a clear example of never trust thine enemy. You know, it says as you see the caption, right? But you know, and I don't know like the full events of what led to this guy being there, but when you look in the comments, everyone, is saying, why is he there? Next time say, no, I'm not coming to the barn, etc. He said, shout out to the Hispanic dude for press the kid at the end, etc. So, and people was basically saying, why is he there, and etc., etc., etc. And of course, at first this kind of made me mad, of course, with Esau and everything, right? I was trying to, kind of like fight off my emotions about it too. But, this is a clear example of this, as the scripture said, never trust thine enemy, man, because you see, look how outnumbered he was around all them people, And you have Jake like this in the world, that is, even if, because say, even if, the circumstances was that, he was there unknowingly or whatever, right? Still, you have Jake in the world, right? And even with that type, say that was the case, even with that type, even though that, is a possibility, right? That whatever happened, right? He wasn't there. I mean, he was, basically what I'm trying to say is Salaki, because there's a lot of stuff going on. All right, basically what I'm saying is, once again, I don't know, why he was there or how he got there, but, say the case was that, somehow he was already there and then it happened, people started showing up, or, somebody brought him there, he didn't know he was going, say even if that's the case, right? You still have Jake in the world, that'll still hang out with these devils like that, going to places that fully dominated by Esau, man. Where they the only, Jake around and stuff like that, that buddy with this devil. The scriptures talk about these things, man. Right? I don't know why do not disturb isn't working. Salakia. All right? But I want to go ahead and get the scripture. So, this is the book of Sirach. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach. chapter 12, starting in verse 10. Never trust thine enemy. And in the scriptures, right, it tells us that we have enemies, us Israelites, man. You know, these other nations. Psalm 83 gives us a list, you know. And in the first nation it mentions is none other than Esau, Edom. Okay? This fucking bee keeps following me, man. Fuck. Alright? But none other than Esau, Edom is the first, and that's who was around him. You know, that's like that's one of the main enemies of the nation of Israel, man. If not the main enemy. Right? Let's just never trust him. You know, because look, man, this devil is a crafty person. These devils are crafty ass people. You know? But no, you know, you're not supposed to trust them. And our people, you know, do this. They trust in him. They trust in this system. They trust, you know, in his power, right? Because the Lord put him in power now, and now he looks, you know, now it looks like as if, you know, this is the best thing going to them, right? Point is, never trust. You're not supposed to trust your enemies, man. Right? It says, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. You know, so just like how iron, you know, the rust, no matter how much you clean it, the rust gonna keep coming back, right? Basically, you know, these devils, you know, they're gonna keep their true hatred for your people, their true intent, their true colors is always gonna, you know, show at one point or another. It's gonna show, you know, it's always gonna show. Verse 11, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Right? And said, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed of him. Yeah, because these devils do that. They act buddy with you, you know, come smile in your face. You know, these devils, I think everybody knows that at this point, that, you know, the typical white man smile, you know, they come smiling in your face. They could hate your guts, but they could put that smile on, man. You know, they could really act like they're buddy with you. You know, once again, it said Esau is a cunning hunter, right? He's a crafty person. It said the serpent is what? It said the serpent is what does it say in Genesis 3:1? Let me just get it. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which Yahweh's powers had made. Right? Subtle going into meaning crafty, you know, cunning, smart, you know. So this devil will do that. You know, that's a crafty method. You know, smiling in your face, you know, to basically make you lower your guard with them. The scriptures talk about these things. That's why wisdom is important. You can see through the BS. It says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, a lot of our people, man, especially Judah, scriptures talk about it, right? They trust this devil. You know, they look at him like, you know, when he puts that front on as if he's their best friend, you know, a lot of our people look at him like that. And the scriptures talk about Judah. This is the book of, you know, they talk about Judah being like that towards this white man. It's Genesis 49:9. Judah is a lion's whelp. Judah, we know, is the so-called Negroes, right? From the prey, my son, now we're gone up. The prey is Esau, right? And it said, my son, now we're gone up. So basically saying that you know, so-called Negroes, you left off from knowing that who your enemy is, you know? This devil, the so-called white man, being your enemy, because at one point in time, you realized that. You know, you had rap songs that went against them, Fight the Power, NWA, you know, civil rights marching, Black Panther movements, right? At one point, you knew that this devil was your enemy, right? At one point, Judah knew that this so-called white man was their enemy, right? But now they done left off, for the most part, from that whole attitude, right? Now they want to be buddy with him. Now they want to hang out with him. They cool if they you know, they're cool if they let them say that. Basically, they're cool if they say the N-word, right? They don't care, you know. They want to get along. You see, God loves white people. They'll pioneer for that. Judah has left off from the prey. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, right? You know, same thing. He left off, reiterating it. He left off from the prey. It says, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? See? And the Lord's going to do that by way of, you know, these police killings and shootings and protests and all of those things. All right. But I wanted to get the point of how, Judah left off from that, so now they trust their enemy, basically. Now that they done left off from the prey, forgot who their enemy is, now they trust them. See? Let me go back. Sirach chapter 12. So even though this devil might, be acting nice to you, you gotta watch him, man. You gotta watch Esau, man. All right. Verse 12, set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And now at the last, remember my words, and we prick therewith. Yeah, once again, you're not supposed to be buddy-buddy with him. Look at that term up, buddy-buddy. That's some type, it's like I guess you could say slang or whatever Jake used, term buddy-buddy. But if you don't know what it means, basically, trying to be, friends and pals with them and stuff like that, Scripture's warning against that. Don't let this devil get like that to you. Don't be buddy with them. Me personally, I don't have no white men as my friends. The most I'll go with Esau is taking a women. When I say taking a women, meaning just dealing with white women in general, not taking a white woman that already has a white man. I'm not saying that already has a man. I'm just saying I'd rather just deal with their women. Fuck them. They hate it when Jake deals with their women. You gotta say that these devils hate our people in general, right? They just hate our people in general, man. Yeah, they hate the skin color, but they really hate our people, and it goes back to that birthright. Now Jacob stole that blessing, or not stole it because Esau gave it to us, but how Jacob has the blessing. Let me say that, Salakia. All right. That's what it goes back to. Our people don't realize that this devil hates us. He hates our people. And I hate the fact that Jake, always saying, why do y'all hate us? I hate that. Because it's like, it's like you look powerless saying that. Like you looking for his approval. We don't need Esau's approval. We don't need shit from him, man. You should hate this devil as much or even more as he hates you. See? But Jake on this side, Jake is once again left off from the prey, man. All right, but saying don't be buddy with him, and you see that sometimes when you see Jake hang out with these white, these different white people, they end up, for example, you might, the last reports of a so-called black man, it was hanging out with white people before they found him somewhere in the woods hanging or something like that, or stuffed in a tire or something like that, It says, and now at the last, remember my words, we pricked there with, yeah. You hear these words, for example, somebody would hear these words, ignore them, go keep, deal with, they would hear these scriptures, ignore them, and go deal with, these devils and everything, be buddy with them and all like that, ignoring the wisdom, just hanging around them nonstop, trying to be a part of them, down with them and everything, right? And then they, show their horns, and now you can't get out of that. And now you remember these scriptures, remember that somebody told you about it, and now you prick, now you cut, like, damn, I should have listened, right? Now, and another thing too, when Jacob's trouble happens, look, everybody's going to be turning to their own people, as the scriptures say. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 13, and verse 14, and this shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land. So when this thing happens, when this thing goes down out here, you're gonna have people, you're gonna have, Elam with Elam, so-called East Indians around East Indians, so-called Chinese with Chinese, which are the Moabites, so-called white people with white people, blacks with blacks, Latinos, that thing, Jake with Jake, I'll say, people are gonna, start siding with their own. That basically like the saying, I've heard people say that, that happens, when crises and things break out. People, side with their own people in that day. Right? So going back to Sirach, it says this now. This is what people were saying, right? Verse 13. It's basically people were saying, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? See? Yeah, like if there's somebody that has a snake charmer, if you know what a snake charmer is? It's the person that, for example, you see in these other countries around the world, they'll have a bucket, and then out of the bucket is a snake that comes up out of it, and you'll have a dude playing a flute or something in front of it, right? And it's trying to charm the snake and move it around, by the music, right? But now if the snake bites you, it's like, who's gonna pity you? You should have never been in there messing with a snake in the first place. You see? Because or any such as come not wild beasts. Yeah. Who should pity you, right? If you yourself go around, for example, a wolf den or a lion den, right? Or a bunch of bears somewhere, and then they attack you. Who's gonna pity you for that? You should never be around there. So the same thing. Who the hell is gonna pity? You start hanging out with Esau and then something happens to you, man. You shouldn't be hanging out with them in the first place, man. And like I said about the white women thing, because black women, man, they hate seeing Jake with white women, but at the same time, they don't like him. But when they see him, they don't like it. But but at the same time, they won't take, their own men, right, and treat them good, right. But here's the thing, with white women, I learned that, like, you gotta watch that too. Like I said, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed of him, because he's, you have the term snow bunnies and everything out here like that, white women and things like that, dealing with a white woman, right? You have those things, you have those terms, basically you have different white women that actually love the, like the Jake man, like the, that like, the Israelite man, right? But don't get it twisted, this is wisdom, because some people, this is just wisdom, because you always gotta, watch your enemy, right? Keep a close eye, Because sometimes, Jake could get married to him or whatever, and you ain't supposed to, marry him, but, sometimes Jake could get married to him, and, the woman ends up, calling the cops on him or something like that, etc. When they in this disagreement, or calls her brothers or parents or father or whatever to come over there, and they end up killing the man or whatever, They're just like, never trust your enemy under no circumstances, You always got to keep an eye on them, So with the whole Snow White woman thing, yeah, that is, one of the best options a woman to take, all right now, man, because the black woman ain't bout shit and ain't going to be bout shit until the kingdom, okay? But other than that, yeah, with this whole, so if you get you a white woman or whatever, that's cool, look, man, I'm all for that, man. Believe me, I'm all for that. But at the same time, just don't, like the scriptures say, never trust thy enemy. Got to keep an eye on it, because you don't know what can happen. It's still, remember, at the end of the day, she's not a part of your nation. She's not your nation of people. You see? And at the end of the day, she's still the devil, and she can turn on you, right? And she can go back to her own people. This just, being aware of these things. You see? So, but not saying don't get a white woman, but just, giving an example, because, these snow bunnies and everything, that's, a big talk, nowadays, with so-called black men and white women. Right now, I'm gonna jump down. Verse 16, it says, "An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood." Yeah, and them guys, and once again, I don't notice, how he ended up being there, But I mean, if he went on his own, once again, as I said, who will pity a charmer that's bitten with a serpent, right? And them guys that said that they was trying to stuff him into a meat grinder, man. If you don't know what a meat grinder is, look that up. That man, if he would have, I was getting mad when I first seen this, man. I was like, if he had to went in, and they pushed him in, if they had to push him in there, I would have had to go take a walk, man, because I would have been angry, right? And I can't wait till we get the devils back in the kingdom, man. I can't fucking wait, man. No fucking mercy, right? The only time off they get from ass whooping is the Sabbath. Other than that, it's going to be a holy. I don't know which apostle or elder said this, but it's going to be a holy. It said something along the lines of it's going to be a holy boot up Esau's ass sideways. You know. Yep. It's lucky. But yeah, you know, another scenario that could have led up to it is whatever happened, you know, to get Jake there in that situation in general. So maybe he saw, you know, was planning something on him. Maybe they didn't like him or whatever, you know, start talking to him sweet, you know, basically, you know, start being friendly, using, you know, kind words and stuff like that. You know, maybe they was planning to do something the scriptures say. It's the book of Psalms 55:21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. That is, once again, it's a common tactic, you know, of this man. So that's a common tactic of him, man. You know, to use those, you know, to lure you in with his words, make you put your guard down with his words, and then he gets you. You see? So this is just, you know, an example of never trust thine enemy, man. You know, you shouldn't be around them Edomite dominated spots. You know, if you are, you know, be with, you know, maybe your brother or something, right? You know, or a couple brothers rather. So they're not like, you know, by yourself. Okay? Because brother, you know, brothers go out and stuff. But that's basically it, man. You know, it's wisdom. Wisdom, you know, can keep you from falling into stuff. All right? So, hey, with that, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Kakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, that root well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect, Shalom. And this is, man, just thinking about it once again. This was the knowledge, understanding, this truth. Man, this is very needful and very useful, man. It could keep you alive, you know. And this was an example right here. So with that, Shalom.